Welcome to Mallorca, where we have got an opportunity to test the very first example of a very exciting new boat. This is the Highfield ADV9. It's a really interesting hybrid between a conventional rib and a more versatile sports boat. Now you can see that we've got a GRP hull. Highfield are best known for their aluminium ribs, but this is a more unusual boat. It's got the styling of a rib, but the versatility and the practicality of a sports boat. Now you can see it's got a vertical rib, but because of that tube well up high, it's a slightly thinner diameter tube than normal, and that is to leave the maximum possible space inside to get a more hybrid style cockpit that you can use for all manner of different purposes rather than an out and out pure focused rib. So the tube acts more as a fender. It's a sort of built-in fender. It also acts as a really effective wave deflector, and we're going to get an opportunity to put that to the test because we've got quite rough seas out there. Now whilst we're here, a couple of things to point out. You'll see that the anchor protrudes through the hull, but that is actually recessed behind that tube. So if you are nudging up to a quay or another boat, you'll see it is the tube that touches first. Now, as the name suggests, it is a 9-meter boat. It's just over 30 feet. And you'll see that the tube is relatively thin. It's about 44 centimeter diameter rather than about 58, for example, for a Highfield 900 Sport. It's also well clear of the water. If we look at the side of the boat here, you can see there's plenty of topside, and the actual waterline is well below the tube. So technically, it doesn't act as a sort of buoyancy. It is just that fender and wave deflector. Now, really interesting design. It looks fantastic. We've got white tubes everywhere. You can see there's a certain amount of color. There are, in fact, 4 different color options to choose from. This is called the mangrove. I think there's also a blue one and a sort of tan colored one. So lots of different options. Really stylish looking hardtop. We've got a full height windscreen. You see there's no gap between the hardtop and the windscreen, and you've got side deflectors too, so should give plenty of protection when you're at the helm itself. Now, the other advantage of having an internal GRP hull moulding is that you can have all the kind of features and practicality of a conventional sports boat. So you can see we've got the moulding comes right up over the tubes here, so you've got room, an easy sort of step on and off the boat at both ends. You can see we can step on either side. It also means there's somewhere to mount things like, well, in this case, the fuel. Also got cup holders, and of course, once we step on, we've got really good handholds here and a nice deep cockpit. Just while we're at the stern here, worth pointing out, engine options can range from a single 450 horsepower Mercury up to twin 300 horsepower Mercury outboards, or the mid-range setup, which is twin 250s, either Honda or Mercury. We have a full A-frame around this. That gives you a towing point up at the top. It also means you've got cleats built into it at the side, so lots of options to moor up. They are in fact going to add an extra mid-cleat on this hardtop support here too, so you can set springs to it. Now we're going to come back to this area in a minute because it's a really versatile transformer style modular aft cockpit that changes in a number of different ways. So we'll come back and have a look at that in more detail in a minute. But whilst we're here, just wanted to point out we've got a Scanstrut Atmos inflator here, so you can inflate tubes or paddle boards, or indeed the actual tubes of the boat itself with an extension if you need to. But a really handy piece of kit to have that built in for inflating kayaks and paddle boards and the like. We have a wet bar here. If I just open that up, we've got all the facilities you need here. This is a gas boat, but you can have it on electric with an inverter, an AGM battery, so you can run it all on electric if you prefer. Got a sink, cup holders, there's a drawer for all manner of bits and pieces in there. It's full of test kit at the moment. But you have got cooking facilities outdoors because there's no internal galley. and I'll talk more about this. This is actually a folding bench, and we'll show you how all that works in a minute. Whilst we're here, it's worth pointing out that we have got storage under these seats. If I lift that up, you can see we've got fully lined lockers there, a gas support strut. Because this is the very first boat, they're still tweaking a couple of things. So this cushion is going to be shaved back a little bit, so it'll lift up and prop up all the way. We've also got storage under this one, full of kit at the moment. And in fact, under the table here, you can see that all lifts up, and we've got access to the batteries and all the systems under there, as well as a hot water tank, because it does in fact have a hot water shower. That is on the stern of the boat. I should probably point out, it looks like it's over there, the hot shower. We've also got a really secure glass gate. This is being modified a tiny bit. There's a little bit of movement in this one. The next one is going to be absolutely rigid, but very nice to have a glass window through there. Now moving forward, we'll just take a quick tour up to the bow area, because here we've got a lovely sunbed. We've also got access to the windlass control, so just remote control for the anchor on those two buttons there. The anchor locker is under here. You can still get to that. You can see all the chain neatly stashed down there, so room for fenders and lines and so on in there too. But most of the time, because the anchor is a through-hull design, you can control it without ever having to go into the locker. Nice to see we've got some handholds, walk-through hull, squared off end. The likelihood is that some people will be using this as a sort of super yacht chase boat too, so very nice to be able to nudge bow first into a boat or onto a quay, and you can literally step through there. We've got steps up and down either side. So this is the sort of coloured gel coat I was talking about. If you change the colour of the cushions, then you can also change the colour of this, so it's all matching. The idea is to add a little bit of luxury to the usual rib experience. We've also got a big hatch in there, letting light down below, and there is another one under here. I'm not sure if you can see, but there's another hatch under there if you want more light and fresh air in the cabin down below. Now, one thing Highfield are known for is producing really solid, secure, safe, simple boats. And I'm pleased to see that the hardtop definitely seems to live up to that ethos. We've got really heavy duty supports there. Also got a rather nice glass top in this. They are going to create a shade for that too, so if you want to create shade over this aft area, there is in fact an extension. We've got rod holders all the way around there too. So lots of good kit you can accessorize it with. I should also point out that whilst we're up on this bow area, this hardtop is in fact really solid. You can stand up onto this, you can access this roof rack up here, you can accessorize that, you can strap down kayaks and canoes and paddleboards and the like. So it is strong enough to actually stand on. We've also got a search light there. It is full walk around, so you can go up either side. And then the helm station here. Very nicely protected, we'll find out. We're going to sea trial it in a minute, so we'll see how well it works, but it feels nice and secure. There is no sunroof overhead, but there's a nice bit of soft padding up here. We've got speakers in it too. A very nice, clear looking helm. We'll see how that works out at sea, but at first glance it looks really nice and clear. We've got a big Simrad screen here. We've got the Honda engine information there. If you go for the twin Hondas, you get this joystick system. If you go for the Mercury one, you get the Mercury one. This boat is fitted with the Seakeeper Ride vessel attitude control system, effectively sort of very high-speed automatic trim tabs. Standard twin Honda controls. All three of these seats slide forwards and backwards. We've also got bolsters on them. At first glance, it looks very nice and secure. I like the fact that we've got side supports here. There is access to the battery switches in here. This is going to be prettified up with a slightly better looking locker. It looks a little bit clunky with that one, but again, they're working on a more sophisticated looking version. You'll notice that there's access under the decks to all the systems. That's not storage, that is just access to systems. And then drop down into the cabin. And what I really like about this is that it just feels very nice and open. You can see the size of the windows either side. We've got little opening hatches. They will be clear. It's just because when they were building the first one, the only ones available were actually those tinted ones. But that makes a huge difference. It just feels so nice and light and airy down here. Really good sized bed. We have this slightly glitzy looking LED system. You'll notice there's a switch up here. You can change the color. So if I tweak that, you can change the different color to suit your particular vibe at the moment. Quite gimmicky, but it does look rather nice. The main thing is we've got these big windows. You can see they both do come with shades on them, but there's a window each side and a really good sized bed actually. I can probably tuck my feet down there. You can see that is a really good length. It's got a couple of storage panels either side. I like these little curved cushions. They just provide a bit of support that means that when you are sleeping, you don't end up sleeping next to a cold bit of uncovered GRP. We've got reading lights. They will do red and white reading lights. We've also got charging sockets for phones and so on. Access to switches, 12-volt support. And in fact, we've got wireless charging over here too. Now this is fitted with the optional heating, so we've got heating in the cabin. I should have also said we've actually got heated seats at the helm, which is a bit of a novelty. Now one compromise arguably they have made is that rather than having a separate heads facilities, they have put the heads under this seat here. So you'll notice that will, when you take the cushion off, again this is the very first one, so there will be a little retainer, but ultimately that will lift up, lock into place there, and then you've got a proper electric Tecmar toilet here. So it's a really proper size toilet, but obviously it is part of the cabin, and that's a compromise they've deliberately made to keep this area much more open and lighter rather than trying to squeeze in a separate heads facility and then everything feels a bit cramped. There is a little sink under there. Again, at the moment this is a sort of clip-in removable panel. That will be on a hinge too, so that it just locks up into position there. And then there's a little bit of storage under there. There is also storage under this cushion here. Again, that's going to be changed. They're going to have a split mattress here to make the whole thing a little bit easier to access, but you can probably see there's a couple of big storage lockers under there, so that will be that much easier to access in future models. Right, I think I'm going to call for a little bit of help at this point to demonstrate the various different options or the various different setups for this stern cockpit, because it's very clever how many different layouts there are once you start playing with it. So to help demonstrate the various different layout options, I've recruited Steve Harrison from Highfield just to help convert everything. So this is the initial sort of open layout to make it as easy to move around the boat. And then if we go into full cruising mode or eating mode, can you show us how that works?
Yeah, so this is kind of your cruising layout now. Table folded, L-shaped rear bench. We can then convert very quickly into picnic mode, which is one of the most important modes on this boat, especially in Mediterranean markets. So we then have comfortable seating for 8 people around the table.
Very smart. So you've got seating on all 4 sides. Really nice big thick teak table. There's no faffing around with sort of extensions and everything. That teak is so thick that it just stays in place. And whilst we're here, I should point out in picnic mode that we've also got 2 fridges. We've got one each side of this helm station. So I'll only show you this one, but trust me, there is one on the other side too. So what's the next variation?
The other advantage is, of course, then if you are using the wet bar, then you have this working space here and your guests can still sit themselves in that U-shaped rear bench, and then when you're ready you just pop that down and join them. We can then again convert this stern area into my favourite mode, which is beach mode. It takes about 2 minutes. Again, we've tried to keep everything as simple as possible. Drop the table. There will be an option for an electric table for those that want it. And then we bring our inserts in. And remember, this is a 9-metre boat. So we
Wow.
So we then give you full beach mode.
Very cool. That is a massive sunbed.
That's a 2.3 metre beam, full width, open ocean access, which we know is very important in today's market. And again, if you're using the sun deck with your partner and your kids are in and out of the water and they're soaking wet, you can create that separation quite easily by giving them their access to and fro, and you still have a full sun deck to use.
Brilliant, and that is really showing off quite how important these thinner diameter tubes are. You can see that because they don't actually impinge on the interior space at all, you can use the full width of the boat for leisure purposes rather than much larger tubes that would then sort of eat in sort of 6 inches to a foot on either side, and you then end up with a much thinner aft cockpit. So it really demonstrates well the difference that makes. So we've come out from Port Molinar to find really quite a rough sea. The wind has been building all day, and we've got a good metre swell and a really messy sea condition, so it's going to be a proper challenge for the hull. Now, Highfield are known for their really good seakeeping. They've got very deep V 24-degree aluminium hulls that makes them light, robust, quite narrow, so they cut through the waves very well. And what they've tried to do is retain that kind of robust seakeeping, but with this GRP hull. It's still nice deep V, it's 22 degrees rather than 24, and it's very heavily built. So a conventional rib weighs around 2.5 tons. I think this is more like 4 tons when it's sort of fully loaded. But it's still certified for up to 8 people category B, RCD, or 14 category C. There's just the 2 of us on board at the moment, so hopefully this will be a great opportunity to see how well that nice, sharp, narrow, vertical stem cuts through the waves. And of course you've got those tubes that act as kind of inflated wave deflectors, and so far we're staying nice and dry, and thanks to this wraparound screen and these deflectors alongside me, hopefully that's going to ensure we stay dry even when we get going. So let's start to put a little bit of power on. We're just doing 7 knots at the moment. We've got those twin 250s purring away behind us. Let's put a bit of extra speed on. And now we're up to 10 knots, just beginning to climb onto the plane. The bows come up a bit. We have got Seakeeper Ride fitted to this boat, but for the moment we're going to try without. 14 knots. Now we're starting to plane nice and efficiently. Take it up to 20 knots. Now we are pitching around a bit, but still feels really solid and staying mercifully dry at the moment. So we're up to 23. We'll keep going. We'll chicken out at some point, doubtless, but hopefully by keeping the waves on our sort of port quarter, if I keep an eye out for the big ones, we're starting to fly around a bit, but we're now at 27 knots. See if we can just ride down the troughs a bit. We're up to 30 knots. Okay, I'm going to ease back now. I think we're going to get a little bit too messy if I go any quicker than that, but let's just try a turn to starboard. So we're still doing 28 knots. Let's put in a turn. Very nice lean, just feels nice and natural. To a full 360, put it through its paces. Very nice. Through our own wake, and there's the full 360. Now, first impressions are just how solid this hull feels. It may be GRP rather than aluminium, but it feels every bit as robust, and that's because it's really heavily built. You know, it weighs around 4 tons all up. It's RCD category B for 8 or C for 14 people. But it feels there's not really any slamming. It feels nice and in control. We haven't even got a single drop of spray on the windscreen. And given the sea conditions, it's really reassuring. We'll try a turn to port into the waves, see if that's any different. Very nice fluid steering. Nice light reactions, but really good and responsive. A little bit of a bang because we've got the fattest part of the hull facing into the waves there. But really good and grippy. Now, one of the decisions they took when designing this was not to put steps in it. A lot of rival sports boats, or even ribs too, have steps in them, which is great for outright speed and efficiency. But the flip side is, when you're piling hard into a turn, there's more danger of slipping out. Because of that sort of aerated hull, you don't get so much boat in the water and you can suddenly spin out. But this doesn't feel like it's going to do that at all. Now, what I'm going to do now is just engage the Seakeeper Ride system, and that should help give us even more, and even sort of less pitching at the bow, and already I can feel that happening. You've got those two little scoops at the back, and that's helping to level up the boat. They can react up to 100 times a second, so it's really fast acting, and it just feels like it sucks the boat down onto the surface a bit more. And there's definitely not as much pitching around at the bow. We've definitely got a more level ride, and giving us at the moment a softer ride. So let's try the same kind of performance and see what happens. Let's put a bit of pace on. Wow, and that bow is staying absolutely pinned now. So now we're doing 30 knots much more comfortably. And because we've got that really nice solid feeling hull, it can take it. We're staying dry. We're not in any danger of stuffing the bow. In fact, I'm going to go a little bit quicker. We're up to 33 now. 35. Up to 38 now. We are doing 40 knots in a 1 meter swell. That is pretty impressive. I might just trim the engine up a little bit. And that's the beauty of the Seakeeper Ride system. You can still trim the engines and take it up to 40 knots. And it'll hold it at that trim that you set it at. So we're doing 41 knots in a really lumpy, messy sea. And you know what? It feels utterly safe. And what's more, oh, we're just overtaking a seabird there. Wow, that is quite something. Given that it's a hybrid leisure boat rather than an out-and-out performance rib, that is pretty impressive. 42 knots, flat out with the twin 250s, absolutely creaming over the waves. I'm sure that Seakeeper is helping us. It very definitely is, because I couldn't do this without it. So there we go. I'm going to ease off for everybody's sake. I don't want to abuse the boat, because frankly, in these kind of additions, that is getting pretty close to abusing it. But I'm just going to ease off so I can talk a little bit quieter and in a more relaxed manner. But that is mighty impressive, given the conditions out here. And yes, we have been using the Seakeeper to get the very best out of it. But what a combination. That hull feels very robust. There is still not a single drop of spray on the windscreen. I am absolutely 100% dry. I've seen very little. There's nothing even on the decks. But most of all, to be able to maintain that speed with that level of comfort and totally dry, that is very, very impressive. What an effective solution. Good work, Highfield. You've done well. Just give you an idea for fuel consumption figures. Now, it's not great conditions for testing it, but we'll see if we can get a flattish run just to give you an idea. But we'll print out the full figures in the magazine test if you want to see that. But let's take it up onto the plane. Now, we've got the Seakeeper Ride on for this. We've got, I think, probably about quarter full tanks. So it's just try at 20 knots. We knock it right down to 20 knots. So 20 knots, it's equivalent to about 3 3,500 RPM, and at that speed we are burning, looks like about 48 litres an hour across both engines. So that's a combined total of 48. At 20 knots, let's take it up a little bit quicker. So 30 knots is conveniently about 4,500 RPM, and that is burning just over, looks like about 72, 73 litres an hour. We'll just do one slightly quicker run, see if we can do it. 35, well, let's go, come on, let's do it quickly up to 40 knots if we can. So 40 knots is just about 6,000 RPM, and at that speed we are burning 170 litres an hour. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. Not perfect given the lumpy sea conditions. I'm sure it'll be better than that in calm water, but at least that gives you some idea of how much fuel it's burning in these conditions. Well, now we're in the calm inside Palma Marina itself. Got an opportunity just to talk a little bit more about the boat, because I have to say, when I saw the conditions out there, I wasn't sure we were really going to be able to test it terribly effectively at all. And to be honest, I was a little bit concerned. You know, Highfield are so well known for the seakeeping of their boats in quite heavy weather, and this is deliberately a more leisure-oriented boat, and I was concerned it might lose a big part of that DNA. But in fact, having been out in those kind of conditions, yes, admittedly with the help of the Seakeeper system, and I have to say, even though it is the best part of a £10,000 retail option, it really does make a significant difference. But crucially, it feels like the hull itself is capable of taking that too. Even without it, it's obviously a very strong, very capable boat. With it, it's genuinely super impressive. In that kind of conditions, to give that kind of speed, but all the extra versatility of that seating system, the sunbathing, the picnicking, seats all the way around the table, and a cabin that is definitely good enough to stay on board for a night or two. Sure, the one thing it's lacking is a separate heads and an inside bathroom, but with a hot shower on the back, heated seats here, heating in the cabin, it's a really capable weekender. It's mostly going to be used as a day boat, but if you want to have a few drinks and stay the night, you can do that too. So congratulations to Highfield. That is a very impressive piece of kit. It is more expensive. It's going to be probably the best part of £200,000 by the time you've spec'd it all up. But with those twin 250 Hondas, or preferably even the 300 horsepower Mercuries, I'd be seriously tempted by with the joystick control. That is a great deal of boat for the money. And if you're after something that gives the ease of ride and handling and security of a rib with tubes, but all the versatility of a leisure boat, it really does nail that brief. Good boat, really good boat.